I always like to try to do something different. There's so many good furniture makers out there, so I always try to put a different twist on something or come up with something a little bit creative. I tend to like mechanical pieces, something that moves, that has some motion, just gives another nice element to the piece. So that's one of the reasons. I've done a few in the past, and this is just another one that I thought would be really cool concept to try to develop and make work. So here we are. I had the idea for the mechanical loom part, and once I built that, I struggled with it. I had some awful times with it, little things, glitches that went wrong. Once I got that, I was happy with it and got the background painted. I just let the cabinet kind of develop. I wanted to have something open, like an open concept on the side. It kind of lends itself more to the outside, you know, the Adirondacks, I guess, you know, instead of just a solid cabinet. So it just kind of develops. Actually, when I started this piece, the base was all built, and I was really happy with it. The loom was built. I had the top built and didn't like it at all. Threw it away, had it all built. Didn't like the way it looked, it didn't flow right, so after having it all done, last year with COVID hit is what really happened. I was working on it, I didn't like it, said it didn't work good, so I let it sit for a few months, went back to it and said, I don't like the top, so I threw it away and started over. So the top was built twice, and I really liked the way it finally flowed together. That's kind of the way it works when I build these pieces. They kind of just develop as you go. You have an idea, but they never seem to work out exactly how you want it, so you kind of got to just go with it and make changes. So this is it.
So I stumbled into doing these old maps by accident. Someone came to me with an idea of taking their old map. They had an extremely old map back in the 1800s and wanted me to personalize it by putting something, you know, their camp on there and some fly fishing thing. And decided, well, boy, you really want me to, you know, to destroy your map. And so I ended up doing it, and it turned out really cool, and they were very happy for, you know, to get it done. But it was very personal, and so it made the map unique, right? So in the last few years here, I've been doing a lot more of these maps, and people with a camp, or, you know, they have a hunting club in a certain area. And I collect all these old antique maps, and to be able to find one for them and say, okay, this is your area here, whatever, you know, a certain lake. Now this particular one happens to be the old forge area. So we have Little Moose Lake here, you know, and I just thought with a couple of loons and the old guide boat is kind of appropriate for this area. But they each one's a little different, and to have them personalized is what's really nice, you know. Like I said, you could have something that means something to you, whether it be fly fishing, whether it mean, you know, a certain kind of, you know, moose or bear. They're nice to have, and of course the frame adds, you know, the whole package here. With my wife does a lot of these birch bark frames, and I think it looks very nice together like this. So it happened by accident, and now I'm doing a number of them.
I'm always looking for the best root base I can possibly find, and that's part of the thrill of building Adirondack furniture is being out in the woods and finding, you know, the most incredible root base, you know, and that's been a hunt of mine for 20 years, you know, and it's much more difficult than you would think. I mean, you have to cover a ton of miles trying to find that root base. So this is a very neat one. It's very unique. You know, some of them can be very ugly, and you know, and the next one you find can have just beautiful form, you know, and this one has that. It has a beautiful look. That's another thing that goes along with, you know, finding the most beautiful root base. I'm also on the hunt for the most beautiful hardwoods, whether it's a bird's eye maple or a curly maple or something like that. The top of this, I guess you can't really see that, but that's a curly cherry, and it's just a super rare tree. You know, they say that about 1 in 1,000 trees will have curl in it, you know, and then, you know, so that is something that has fantastic curl. Maybe, you know, maybe 1 in 10,000 trees, you know, so there's another, you know, hunt for the best kind of thing. I'm always looking for anything interesting to mix in, you know. When I'm in the woods, I'm always looking for different surfaces, different textures, different things to work in. The stone that's in these pieces over here is kind of a new thing. It was just an interesting concept to weave in with the woodworking. do. I don't get out as much as I used to. I have I'm from a small town, which is a logging community, so I grew up with a lot of guys that are loggers. Now their kids are loggers, so I have this network of people that's looking out for really unique things. So you never know what's going to show up in my shop. You know, it could be a burl that's 4 feet in diameter. It could be a stump like this. It could be, you never know. So that's part of the fun of it too.
To be honest with you, I was always, since a child, I always whittled. And then my mom's dad, my grandfather, he was a wood carver, like primitive folk art. And so I grew up seeing those throughout the house, anywhere from still lifes to farm scenes and I decided that I needed a focus in my life to, to stay out of trouble, to be honest with you. I started carving. See, I was always able to draw. I was able to draw my entire life, growing up in school. And I was extremely bored in school, so I drew in every class but gym class. And pen and ink. So that's why I'm able to achieve that detail with the wood burner. And that pen and ink, you were constantly aware of that tip, throwing out a blot of ink. The damage is done if that's the case. So you always had a piece of paper to wipe that off before that happened. And same with this, if I go too hard with the pressure, it's burnt. And it doesn't take long to make it too dark.
I wanted chairs that would support your back, that you could sit in for hours and get up with no soreness, instead of a saggy, soft cushioned chair. And so my first chairs in 1981 was a hunk of junk. It had no grace to it, not very comfortable. It had slats and stuff on it, so I knew it wouldn't wear out, but it didn't have much of a contour. So after about 3,500 chairs, with the help of all my children growing up, I was starting to get the hang of it. But I make beds, dining tables, desk and other things, cabinetry, but mostly I still get a kick out of the chairs to support the human body really comfortably, and to find the components out in the woods that make a good chair. I mean, the fine creates the fashion. And so every year I go out around after Thanksgiving and walk about 150 miles or more in the woods with just a light chainsaw, looking for those bends, a good bend in the back and stuff. Every now and then I find something like this that's got roots on it, and dig, and so it takes quite a while to harvest. A couple of, like 3 weeks where I'll harvest and then dry them till they're bone dry, so I can make a chair that will stay rigid.
When I started building furniture 25 years ago or whatever, it was all twig stuff. There wasn't a straight piece anywhere, because I didn't have any of those tools. I didn't have a planer, I didn't have a joiner. I just was and it was chairs. And then I saw my chairs and I saw Barry Gregson's chairs, and I said, this is pointless. I'm not going to compete with that. His are perfect, and what's the point? There's already a guy who's doing it great. Yeah. And so my work evolved to much more finer, things, and I got more of the tooling necessary to do it. And it's just been a slow evolution. Every now and then I go back into something a little bit more rustic. And it's usually for a client that was from 10 years ago that wants something to match that they had before. So I might do a little bit of a birch bark thing here or whatever. But basically I'm over twigs, I'm over bark. I do a lot of live edge stuff, that sort of thing. And then incorporating crazy things like this copper stitching here, and there's leather stitching on the sides. So those are my details that I consider to be rustic. Yeah, all my pieces usually have a hidden compartment, and it kind of takes away from the monotony of just doing the same old thing, because they're all a little bit different. And so, and they usually take about a day, like a whole day. And as I'm working on the piece, I'll try to figure out, okay, where's it going to be? How's it going to work? And there's a very slow progression as to figuring out how I'm going to do this. And then it'll come to me, and then I'll say, okay, tomorrow I got to do that hidden compartment. And it you know, it basically is the whole day just to figure out where it's going, how it's going to get in there, and make it work. But it's a fun day because they're all different, and you never know till it's done if it's really going to work.
This is a piece of driftwood I actually got from Lake Erie in Hamburg, New York, and when I was out visiting Buffalo, and caught my attention. It was actually at the top of a big pile of driftwood that they had pushed to the side of this beach, and it was just kind of sitting up there, so I grabbed it, and I've had it for about 2 years, and I kind of just looked at it, and I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted it to be, but I knew that I was going to be doing this show, and I wanted to do a hanging chandelier kind of piece, and it just popped into my mind that, you know, if I opposed this vertically, that it would be kind of an interesting sculptural cantilevered shape. So, you know, I tried to take the driftwood and accentuate the form with the twig element, which is all maple twig work, and then kind of nestled in the center of that is a brass chandelier body, which has 6 handmade copper arms. I wanted this piece to, you know, be a little bit of rustic, a little bit of almost mid-century with the brass chandelier hardware, mixed with that traditional, classy, simple chandelier look with just the single, you know, unshielded bulbs. For the shape for the arms, I kind of wanted to mimic this shape of the central piece of driftwood. It kind of has this big elbow that kind of reaches up, back and around, and with these forms, I kind of wanted to just, you know, mimic that shape and continue it through the rest of the piece.